Last week, the New York Times bought The Athletic, the sports website, The Athletic, for $550 million, which is a lot of money. Which is a lot of money, but it's actually less than the people who founded The Athletic thought they were going to get. They thought they were going to get closer to $750,000 for this site. Now, full disclosure, I do a lot of freelance work for the New York Times. I have not written for The Athletic, but I did a presentation for them. So both these companies have put money in my pocket and allowed me to have these lavish surroundings. Like, look at this iPhone. Thanks, New York Times. Thanks, Athletic. Thanks, CBC. But anyway, here's the thing, though.
You're welcome.
Is that right?
As a subscriber.
From here we go. So I'll ask you, Megan, because from the beginning, The Athletic, they made plain when they were profiled in the New York Times, and one of their founders said, our goal is just to bleed every local sports department in the country, and I guess the continent, because The Athletic is in Canada too, bleed them all till they just run out of talent, and when they collapse, we'll just come clean up the mess. But what has happened is sort of the opposite, is that a newspaper has bought The Athletic. Like, Megan McPeak, what does this transaction say to you about where sports journalism is headed?
You know, and it's hard to really say, because it only happened like Thursday or Friday, I believe, is when I read the article on it, and it wasn't really informative as to what that meant for the writers for The Athletic, what it meant for subscribers. What I took away from it, and, you know, full disclosure, like you, Morgan, I'm a subscriber to The Athletic because of my job. I need to know what's going on, and just focusing on, you know, one entity for sports doesn't really help. And they do a lot of deep dives into some topics when it comes to sports as well too. So it didn't really tell subscribers like, oh, you're going to roll over, you're going to stay at this subscription, you don't have to subscribe to the New York Times as well. It's still something that I think they're working out and figuring out. I know in the article I read, it mentioned that they might offer a, you know, full New York Times package that you get the New York Times and The Athletic. What does that mean for subscribers at this point? We're still trying to figure that out. What it means for writers of The Athletic, we don't know. I have a lot of, you know, colleagues that write for The Athletic, and trying to figure out what that means for them. It's tough, because now you're wondering, okay, am I out of a job? Do I now still, do I work for The Athletic continuing? Am I now an employee of the New York Times? What does this mean for me and my job? Like, a lot of people, I'm wondering what they feel right now. And it's confusing, because it could be great for The Athletic being under the platform of the New York Times. You get eyeballs on, you know, your articles that your writers are writing that you might not have gotten because you were just The Athletic. Now you're tied into the New York Times. But it could also be bad if the New York Times decides we don't need all of these writers. We no longer want to continue the model that The Athletic was going with, having one, you know, dedicated writer per sports team. That's what they were trying to do, at least with NBA coverage they were doing. So it's still so new that I honestly don't know what this means for sports journalism, because we don't know what they're going to do as the New York Times with this new acquisition. And if I'm a writer for The Athletic, that's kind of scary.
Yeah, a couple of things we know about The Athletic is one, some years they make money. They don't always make money, because they spend a lot of money hiring people. They spend a lot of money on talent. But we also know that, like, they have benefited from successive rounds of venture capital. Like, there's always these people just saying, here, Athletic, here's 8 figures. Here, Athletic, here's 7 more figures. Take the money. Go ahead.
Sorry, Morgan, to just add to what you're saying. Let's also keep in the caveat that The Athletic doesn't do any advertising. They go strictly off of subscribers. So that's where their revenue comes in.
Yeah, well, exactly. So what we haven't seen is whether that model is profitable in the long term, or profitable at the prices The Athletic is selling itself for right now. But what has happened is, like, the founders and the venture capitalists, it's not for them to find out anymore. It's for the New York Times to find out what price plus what reach plus the possibility of advertising or partnerships or whatever makes this thing profitable. Because that's something we still don't know. Like, can a huge sports media outlet run strictly on subscriber dollars. This is what we're trying to find out. And this is what the people writing the checks at the New York Times are about to find out. Dave Zirin, what were you going to say?
Man, I have a friend of mine who writes for The Athletic, not going to say his name. When he heard about this merger, he was all like, OMG, I can't believe this. I'm 29 and now I work for the New York Times. And I was like, dude, that's like being excited that you work for SeaWorld because they got you swimming with the sharks. I mean, I'm much more in the Megan camp about this. I'd be very concerned if I was an Athletic writer right now, because why did this buy happen? $550 million in cash, as the New York Times was very pointed about saying. It's happening because the New York Times promised its stockholders that they were going to have 10 million subscribers, and they currently only have 8.2, and the Athletic brings in 1.3. So from the New York Times perspective, what is the Athletic? The Athletic is a rounding error for a stock dividend. That doesn't sound like the kind of commitment that the people of the Athletic, who I've seen in action, have put towards their product. I mean, the people I know who work for the Athletic, they put out some of the best sports journalism in the country. And I don't see any evidence that the New York Times prizes that part of the deal as much as they prize the possible profit-making part of the deal for their stockholders. And that would make me very concerned about issues like layoffs, profitability, as they like to call it, trimming the fat, which is usually just trimming the effectiveness of the operation. So we're going to have to see what happens. We really do not know. But it's one of the things where I would not be going in like pumping my fist right now if I was with the Athletic. I'd be going in much more like, okay, I'm concerned about this. Prove me wrong.
Well, as New York Times sports business writer Kevin Draper was tweeting over the weekend, like this, and he does have a dog in the fight because he works for the Times. But at the same time, this is a little bit different from a hedge fund buying your media outfit, right? So like if Mitt Romney comes up and says, hey, we're going to buy your newspaper, you know what, just quit, because they are going to, or at least try to get like a good buyout, because they're getting rid of everybody and they're selling all the real estate. And there it goes. They might sell your laptop if they can get $100 for it. Dave, last word to you on this.
No, just that I think that the reason why the Athletics even had an audience is because, not because they were snatching great sports writers away from papers, but because these papers were bleeding them out anyway. Like for so many sports writers that I know, the Athletic was like a trampoline as they were taking the fall, and they've bounced off that trampoline and put out the kind of journalism that I think the sports world desperately needs. So, we cross our fingers and hope for the future of this, because it really is about the future of real sports writing, not ex-jocks on television. All power to ex-jocks. I love my ex-jocks, but I'm talking like we're like journalists doing the work of chasing stories, of trying to figure out whether Novak Djokovic forged that test or did that event with kids while he already knew that he had COVID. Or, I mean, these are things that need to be ferreted out, and the Athletic shows a model for being able to have that. And so we all have a vested interest in seeing it succeed.
Yeah, I mean, the more outlets, the better, and the more independent outlets, the better. Because again, the difference between New York Times and the Athletic and ESPN is that New York Times and the Athletics are not partners with the leagues that they cover. So if someone at the Athletic wants to do a League of Denial type investigation, the NFL is not going to tell them they can't. In the same way that the NFL got really mad at ESPN for doing that, and ESPN and PBS had to break up, remember, on that Frontline series for reasons like that. And you don't have those conflicts at the New York Times or at the Athletic. And like that is, day-to-day fans don't always recognize how important that is, but that is vitally important, that like everything you say and write about the NFL or whoever does not have to pass through the NFL's filter for them to say, yeah, you know what, this is fine.